All right. Well, week 3 is upon us here, and on Sunday, 1 o'clock Eastern Time, the Eagles host the Indianapolis Colts. Both teams come in 1-1. The Colts with an impressive win on the road last week at Washington, helping the Eagles out a little bit, I guess, if you could say, beating the Redskins, who had been 1-0 going into that game, and the Colts were 0-1, of course, losing at home to the Bengals the week prior. They get the win in Washington. To go to 1-1. The Eagles, of course, coming off that loss at Tampa. And, every week is going to bring a new set of challenges when you're a defending Super Bowl champ. As I've said many times, you're going to get your opponent's best game. Now, the Colts come in as a kind of interesting team because they do have head coach Frank Reich, who, of course, was with the Eagles last season as on the coaching staff for the Eagles, and was one of the brain trusts that helped this team win a Super Bowl. And obviously, when you look at um, what the Colts have in their own team offensively is very similar to what the Eagles run. I don't want to say it's a mirror image of what the Eagles run, but it's very similar. Of course, there's a lot of familiarity there. So that means, of course, the Colts defense, used to seeing the type of offense that the Eagles run, but the Eagles, of course, will be used to seeing the type of offense that the Colts are going to run. Very similar in the designs. And listen, tip the hat and shout out to Frank Reich. He did a great job here on the coaching staff. Came up with a great help to come up with a great game plan to help this team to help maximize Nick Foles, his abilities and what he likes to do, the RPOs and all that. They kind of made famous last season in the playoff run, and then of course in Super Bowl 52. And great job him and Coach Peterson, and all the coaching staff for the offense. Putting together that game plan that helped this team get to and win Super Bowl 52. So I'm sure it's going to be interesting, for Doug. They're going up against, his former assistant coach as a head coach now with the Colts. So far, look, the Colts have a very young team. It's if I remember correct, I think I heard they're the youngest team in the league. So obviously, there's going to be some growing pains, but with that, they have some really good talent. Obviously, who's healthy now. Quarterback Andrew Luck, he got T.Y. Hilton. And on defense, they have a very promising young rookie in Darius Leonard, who is putting up some big-time numbers. In the win against the Redskins last week, he had 18 tackles, 15 solo tackles. And I remember many years ago, I was at Veterans Stadium watching the Eagles game with my dad, and they were playing the Bears. And the Bears had this young, defensive player, rookie that season, who perhaps you've heard of him, went on to do some pretty good things. Brian Urlacher, who had a good game. The Eagles won that game, but Urlacher was all over the place, making tackles and everyone in the crowd, we're sitting up there in the 700 level, the famed 700 level, and people in the crowd saying, "Well, this Urlacher, he's pretty good." Now we can argue whether or not he should be a first ballot Hall of Famer, but he was a Hall of Famer, of course, going in with the likes of Brian Dawkins and Terrell Owens and company, Randy Moss, of course, and company this year. Really good, great Hall of Fame class. A lot of memories for me with those players. But yeah, I remember watching Brian Urlacher as a youngster, coming up in the league as a rookie when he was playing that game against the Eagles, and I think he led the Bears in tackles that day. No big surprise from what he went on to be able to do throughout his Hall of Fame career. And the Colts have this young defensive player, a stud, and Leonard. He's playing really well. And look, I mean, as a young player, sometimes it's like what you don't know is either going to hurt or help you. And when you're going up against teams on the road and talent, on offense, and you're just a young player, I mean, you don't know how to be afraid of certain players. You've never gone up against them. So he's going on. He's had a really good start to his career. So that's a player the Eagles are going to have to atone for. The Colts as a whole are not a huge pass rush type of team. They don't get a lot of pressure on the opposing quarterbacks, at least so far. But they have a lot of youth, a lot of inexperience there. And they're still trying to piece it together. This is a team that went through some dark years. Of course, Andrew Luck was hurt. So those seasons were very difficult for them. They had a lot of injuries, a lot of moves that didn't quite work out, taking chances on certain players, and some players may have worked out a little better than others, but mistakes were made. And right now they're trying to rebuild this team. Of course, with Andrew Luck at quarterback, the franchise quarterback back healthy, T.Y. Hilton, and then some young talent that they have on offense and defense. So going into this game, I mean, listen, I mean, I'd like to say that the Eagles, can bounce back, without a problem. I mean, the Colts are still a team, a young team, trying to put it together. But I gotta tell you, the more I look at this game, the more I look at what the Eagles are going to be going up against, and let's not forget we're getting our quarterback back in this week, in Carson Wentz. Again, shout out to Nick Foles for winning Super Bowl 52 MVP. But we do get the franchise quarterback back, and that's certainly a good thing. That's going to hopefully help this offense. I know they have a lot of injuries. They might be getting some guys back at some point soon, but we'll see. And speaking of guys they got back, get to wear the old Jordan Matthews jersey again. As they brought him back in as a free agent. Of course, he started the season, the offseason with the Patriots, and then some injuries just kind of sidelined him, and they released him. So he was a free agent. He's back. And let's not forget, his Carson Wentz's rookie year, Jordan Matthews was one of his favorite targets. I know we've criticized Jordan at times for dropping some passes. All the receiving corps dropped a lot of passes that season. But, he's been a good pro, and, BFFs with Carson, so that helps to bring him back into the fold. I actually got this jersey. I think it's funny. I got this jersey at a blowout sale that the Eagles were having the year that they it was going into last season actually, and they had traded him to Buffalo for Ronald Darby, and then the sale of course occurred, and they had a bunch of Jordan Matthews jerseys for $10 on a rack. And I got it just, it's an Eagles jersey, whatnot. And, because you just never know sometimes, right? You get a jersey and next thing you know, the player's coming back some years later. So, might be a different number, but JVR back with the Flyers now. Of course, he was number 21 originally. Now he's wearing number 25. So that might be just a simple, fix. But, Jordan Matthews back in the fold. Carson Wentz, of course, back in the fold. But they will not have some players this week. Again, as last week, Darren Sproles won't be playing. It looks like Jay Ajayi will not be playing. I know they promoted Adams up from the practice squad. And also they have, Wendell Smallwood. Corey Clement actually is on the injured list with I believe, a quad issue. So either quad or groin, I forget. But, he's questionable. And actually, Alshon Jeffrey was bumped up from doubtful to questionable. So I don't know what that means. I don't know if he's going to play or not. I think it's probably doubtful that he's going to play still. They might wait another week, and maybe he gets on the field next week at Tennessee. But you never know. I mean, the guy played through a torn rotator cuff last season and scored a touchdown in the Super Bowl. So you just never know sometimes. Guys have a higher threshold for pain. They get out there. And if Alshon's out there, that certainly helps. I mean, we're going to see Matthews there on the other in the slot, and they're going to move Aguilar to the outside. I kind of have mixed emotions about that because I know he's turned his career around for the better. Certainly last season he had his best season as a pro. But now I always thought that Aguilar was better in a slot as a slot receiver than on the outside. Now, let's not forget a few years ago when he was on the outside, he had a bit of a case of the drops, so, I don't know. We'll see. We'll see. Now he's a different receiver than he once was, and maybe that helps. I know Matthews is, his spot is a slot receiver. But again, I remember last season when Matthews was traded to Buffalo, Aguilar moved to the slot. And of course, they had Torrey Smith and Jeffrey on either side, and Aguilar thrived, and he's thrived, this season. But then again, he has been on the outside too, with the injury to Alshon Jeffrey and also Holland. So, maybe just getting that confidence. Last season it does wonders. As we all know. So we'll see. We'll see how that works. Of course, you get number 11 back into the fold, and that's going to hurt. That's going to help this offense a lot. Obviously, with what he can do, he might be a tad rusty to start. I wouldn't be surprised. I heard on the radio today, and I agree. I wouldn't be surprised if his first series he might have a couple passes that get away from him a little, maybe a little too high because he has a lot of adrenaline coming out. His first start, obviously, since late last season when he ended his season in LA against the Rams. Excited. Excited to get number 11 back on the field. His BFF is back in Matthews, and he has some weapons. Aguilar, of course, Ertz, and hopefully we can see a little more of Dallas Goedert. He's kind of been in the witness protection program the first few weeks. So, of course, I get a phone call, right? I always hate that. You're right in the middle of, making a video, making a point, and then all of a sudden, But I was talking about Dallas Goedert. I hope he takes the field, more this week. I'd like to see him, particularly with Wentz back in the fold. Like to see how that combination is going to work. With the other weapons. And yeah, they are missing some players. I mean, if Alshon Jeffrey doesn't play, you don't have, your best receiver on the field. Jay Ajayi, not playing. Darren Sproles not playing. So it's not a complete picture just yet. I hope, these guys come back healthy. And the one thing I do know is that, there's a lot of talk and even some concern. The fact that this team won the Super Bowl last year and every week is, they got to, be up for whoever they're playing. It doesn't matter what the records are. You're going to get, their best performance and because they're playing defending champs. And you always raise your game when you're playing a defending champ. But I do know this, is that I know that Carson Wentz has some drive. I mean, just the fact that he's come back ahead of schedule, after rehabbing, after the injury last season in LA, he wants to go. He wants to prove it. He wasn't on the field last year when the Eagles, were winning Super Bowl 52, and he wants that moment. And it doesn't always work that way, but the guy has drive. The guy is supremely talented, and I think it's a great thing. Go in this season, a season where we're hoping, of course, and they're hoping to defend the crown. You get your quarterback, your franchise quarterback back, who has that drive, that ultimate drive, to try to win, a Lombardi of his own. He was able to enjoy it. He was on the, he was at the parade. He was, he's got a ring. He's, he held the Lombardi trophy and all that came with being a champion. But, ultimately, he wasn't on the field during that game, besides for the sidelines. He wasn't in the field of play, and he wants that moment. I mean, I think that moment last season, watching Nick Foles do what he did and winning Super Bowl 52, and not only winning it, but being Super Bowl 52 MVP, I think that drives Carson Wentz that much more, that he wants that moment. He wants his own moment to win a Super Bowl championship for the Eagles and win that Super Bowl MVP, or even if he isn't Super Bowl MVP, at least get them to a Super Bowl and win a Super Bowl. I'm sure that just drives him even more than ever before, and you can just tell just how he rehabbed and everything that kind of went into this coming back, earlier than what possibly could have been with injuries like that. That just shows that drive. Now, you want to be careful. You don't want him to, re-injure himself. And I'm sure if the team felt that there was any chance that he could re-injure himself, they wouldn't let him onto the field. And the doctors went and medically cleared him. That's a tongue twister. Medically cleared him to play. So I think that, they feel he's ready. Obviously, he feels he's ready. The coaching staff feels he's ready. The organization, and so he takes the field. A lot of us kind of figured this game would be the game we would see him if he was going to come back early. This would be the game, and indeed, it's week 3. It's against the Colts. Yes, the weapons might not be all there. All the tools aren't in the chest, as it were. But he's not playing with a full deck right there in front of him. But you know what? The greats, they just know how to elevate everyone's game, and you saw that last season. You certainly saw that last season. I mean, he would have been the MVP if he doesn't go down, in LA with that injury. And, he set the franchise record for touchdown passes in a season. The guy just is driven. And like I said before, watching that Super Bowl performance, watching his teammates, get to the highest pinnacle with him not being able to partake with that injury, that just drives him even more. And it's a terrific thing. And, I really look forward to seeing him out there again and, seeing what he can do. I hope he's a little more careful. Look, the guy, he's a winner. He's got that drive. He got hurt trying to go for a touchdown. Now, us in Philly, us fans, those are the type of players that we love, because they go for it. They'll go the extra step. They'll try to, go beyond, it's that aggressiveness, it's that attitude that they will do whatever it takes to win, whatever it takes to score those points. But that being said, you do want to be a little more cautious. Maybe next time when he's, going for that end zone, he sees a couple defenders coming. I don't know. But my heart would be in my throat again if I see that. But I'm excited. I'm happy he's here. I'm happy he's a quarterback. With all due respect to Nick Foles, who did a great job last season in Wentz's absence. But we got our franchise QB back, and I'm excited for that. And at the right time. No disrespect to Nick Foles, and it wasn't his fault they lost that game this past week, but. You just sense that this team kind of needs a little jolt, a little something, because last week, and there were mistakes made, and it's like I don't know exactly how to put it because, I saw that fire against Atlanta, and I don't know, maybe because it was on the road in that heat. And whatever it was, you just saw moments where they were just kind of almost sleepwalking, and you can't do that because if you take your foot off the gas, you're gonna ask for it. And we saw all last season this team never took their foot off the gas. It was full steam all the way, even when they had all those injuries, and they won a Super Bowl because of it. And last week I saw that. I saw moments of that. It was players not making those plays that we're accustomed to seeing them make. And yes, we're also accustomed to seeing Jalen Mills get double moved. And this week he got Andrew Luck and T.Y. Hilton. So there might be a few double moves, put in the Colts offense. I mean, look, Coach Reich knows all about Jalen Mills from being here. So he certainly knows how to attack, what could be a problem, for this defense. Now, that being said, and again, Jalen's one of the guys that, was part of the roster that helped us win a Super Bowl, and that will never be taken away. But I almost feel like he's got like this, he's on thin ice. Because if he continues to struggle, if he continues to get beat on these double moves, I think he's a better slot corner. And I know they got Sidney Jones in the slot right now. He's doing really good in the slot. But Sidney Jones is better as an outside corner. And they got Jalen Mills out there getting burnt every week. And if it continues, I mean, if T.Y. Hilton goes off this week for like Julio Jones and like Deshaun Jackson and Evans did, the past 2 weeks, I mean, you got to make the move at that point. You got to move Sidney Jones to the outside and put Jalen Mills on the inside. Where Sidney might be a better cover corner on the outside than Jalen Mills. Maybe he doesn't get burned every time a receiver makes a little move, Now, Not that I could do that. This is as much as I can do. ah, but it's just something that we're gonna have to watch. You know, and us as a fan base, I mean, we were all livid with Jalen Mills this week. You know, and there was a little kind of back and forth with the fans and him on social media and everything. And look, when the players start going after fans on social media, you're never going to win. That's a battle they're never going to win. Yeah, but, you know, we live in an age of social media. They're going to do it. The fans are going to do it, what we do. The players are going to react to it. You got to be careful, though. And Jalen, listen, I understand that it might not be fair. A lot of times that the fans can say things that they want and the players feel like, well, you know, why can't I say something back? But the one thing you have to understand, Jalen, is that this fan base, the Eagles fan base, has been with this team a whole lot longer than you and I were alive, okay? This is a fan base that has always cared about this team. The Eagles have always meant something in this town. It's a football town. It's the mentality of this town. This town bleeds green every season, whether it's a winning season or not. And there's been a lot less winning seasons than not. Obviously, only one Super Bowl championship. This fan base has been there through everything. I can say, and I've said this before, I can safely say, I can sit here today on September 21st of 2018 and tell you that I have seen everything you can see with a team in the Eagles. Good, bad, and otherwise. I have seen everything. Last season, you know, capped it off. I finally saw a Super Bowl championship. Okay? I have sat either in this room or at the old house in my old green chair, and I have watched many an Eagles game in my life when they were wearing the Kelly green uniforms or were wearing the midnight green uniforms, the black alternate uniforms, the white uniforms, whatever uniform, whatever helmet, whatever players have come and gone, coaches have come and gone, you know, the like. And there are many fans older than me that go back farther than me, but I have sat here or at the old house, wherever it was, and I have watched many, many years of Eagles football. And I've seen a lot of players and a lot of good times and a lot of bad times. And as a fan, I have an opinion and I'm going to make it. And I've done this series now this is the 5th year. I've been doing this series as being an Eagles fan, and I always keep it 100%, whether it's good or bad. I always tell you how I feel. And as a fan, I'm going to react because that's what fans do. Now, I might not be as demonstrative as some of the other, you know, Eagle vloggers on YouTube who are more famous than me because they do get very animated. Nothing against them, I'm just saying. But I wanted to start this series 5 years ago because I wanted people to see what it is to be an Eagles fan. What is it to go through these seasons? And you've seen good and bad. You've seen the lowest of the low a few years ago with the Chip Kelly years. You saw the highest of the high last season. And I'm always going to keep it 100%, whether it's a winning season or not. But I, as a fan, have an opinion because people have opinions. And when people harp on Jalen Mills for being burned, you know, every week almost, it seems, on a double move, well, it's because that's what we see. I mean, last week's game starts with a bomb to Deshaun Jackson, and he scores a touchdown. And Jalen, now that responsibility may have been Malcolm Jenkins, but Jalen Mills was there, and he still got beat. And we've seen it every week. And I know it's the defensive schemes, and it goes to Jim Schwartz. I said last week, I don't agree with what this defense at times, not adjusting. Particularly last week, out of the soft coverages. But Jalen Mills, it's like you give a receiver, I know you can't anymore in the NFL, you have to give the space, but he gives too much space. And then he still gets burned on these damn double moves every week, you know? And yeah, so we're going to see that, and we're going to get annoyed with that. But as much as Jalen Mills and any other player is happy when these fan bases are blowing bouquets at them, you know, helping bringing us the greatest thing we've ever seen, a Super Bowl championship, and that parade, you know, in Philly in February, you got to understand, well, when you're making mistakes, even as a defending champion, listen, it's the good fan bases, it's the real fan bases that are going to tell you. It's the real fan bases, even coming off a Super Bowl championship, that are going to be annoyed when you as a player are making mistakes every week. And the fans are going to tell you, and that's what the real fan bases do. That's what makes this fan base one of the best there is. Because even after the greatest of seasons, when things aren't going right the following season, we're going to let you know. We're not going away. We're not changing. Maybe we're a little more jovial than usual, but we're still going to tell you when you make a mistake. Why do you keep making this mistake? And again, I don't want to get on my soapbox here and be, that kind of way, but it annoys me. It annoys me that a player who's been here for a number of years is saying, well, the real fans, they're, we'll see them at the end of the season when we're winning, if we're going back to the Super Bowl. Well, no, Eagle fans are real fans, Jalen. This is a real fan base. This is a fan base that's been through a whole hell of a lot throughout the years. And they've stuck by this team. So it does annoy me, when you hear a player, talking about, and I understand it, it's a double standard, I get it, the fans are going to talk about it when the player talks about the fans, but it's what he said that bothers me, about, the real fans. Eagle fans are real fans, okay? There are fans that have had season tickets for years, spend so much money through losing seasons to park, to tailgate, to do all that with the food and the drinks and all that money that goes into going to games every week. You talk about that stadium is always full. Okay, winning seasons like last year or losing seasons like the Chip Kelly years, that stadium is full. These fans care about this team. And this fan base has always been behind this team. Whether it's booing the fan dressed as Santa Claus back in the day, at the years at Franklin Field or the Vet, or Lincoln Financial Field, this fan base has always been there. And this fan base will always be there. And this fan base was a big reason why that team won the Super Bowl. That energy, that emotion that they got on road games when the fans are taking over the whole stadium, like in, L.A. at the Chargers. It was an Eagles home game. All those fans that are there, the Super Bowl, you heard the fans. So this is a great fan base. And yeah, we're opinionated. We're one of the more opinionated fan bases out there. It's always been that way, and it will always be that way. Whether we win 10 Super Bowls, whether we only win the one, whatever, we're always going to be giving opinion. It's because what we do, good or bad. And that's all I want to say about that. I really didn't want to go that long about it, but I just felt I had to say something, So thank you all for watching. This is going into week 3 now. We're getting ready for the Colts. I want to give a big shout out to my buddy Mark M. He of the Season of the Fan of the Philadelphia Flyers series. Just got his next season started. His next season of the Season of the Fan, the Flyers series going back up. I'm going to be with him and some other buddies. We're going to be going to Nichols this week, and I believe it's in South Philly, if I remember correct. It's the first time we've ever been there, at least I've ever been there. And I'm going to be going with my buddy Mark M. and some other friends. I'm not sure if the captain's going to be there or not. Maybe not. We'll see. He's a busy man. The captain's very busy. But Mark M., I look forward to it. We're going to have a good time. Hopefully watching the Eagles get a win against the Colts. Listen, as for the game itself, my biggest key for this game, obviously, besides Carson coming back and getting back in the flow of a regular game, not just simulation or something, and of course seeing what Mr. Matthews does coming back. I will go on the limb here and say that Matthews is going to have about 6 or 7 catches for between 70 and 80 yard range, maybe 80, 85 range, and a touchdown. That's my prediction for Jordan Matthews' return as a Philadelphia Eagle, because he does, again, have that rapport with number 11, and they are BFFs. So that's my prediction for what Mr. Matthews is going to do this week in his return to Midnight Green. Um, and the biggest key for me for this game, this defense has to rebound. And this defensive line has to get back to just being that dominant force. And to beat the Colts, listen, Andrew Luck is still a very good quarterback. I know he's coming off the injury. He's had a good season so far. But the one thing that has always been a bit of a bugaboo for him is the turnovers. And I know he hasn't always had the greatest offensive line and weapons around him, but he will be a giver from time to time. He does turn the ball over. He throws his share of interceptions, and he does that because he's under pressure a lot, because that offensive line, which is a little better now maybe than it was, but it still does not allow him the time, to make those reads, to make those throws. He's a very confident quarterback. He's a very competent quarterback. He's a very talented quarterback, and he can make plays with his feet as well as his arm, as we know number 11 can too. But the biggest thing for me is I want to see this defensive line getting back to being that dominant force that we know they are, getting pressure on Andrew Luck, and making him throw mistakes. And you got to take advantage of it when he does. I don't want to see these drops. We saw McLeod have it in week 1 against Atlanta. When there's an opportunity to pick off a pass, you got to pick off the pass. Again, get pressure on number 12. Get pressure on him and keep pressure on him the whole game. Make him uncomfortable back there. And hey, let's not forget, Eagles Nation, this is the best home field advantage in all of the NFL. It just is. These fans are going to be there in full throat. They're going to be real excited, of course, for having Carson back on the field. And maybe some applause for Matthews coming back into the fold. But, of course, the biggest excitement is for Carson, seeing him back on the field in Eagles uniform, actually being a quarterback in Eagles uniform, not just a spectator, on the sidelines. So this crowd's going to be pumped up. It's a great home field advantage. This team simply does not lose at home very often, okay? So let's keep that going. This is the second home game of the season. They beat the Falcons in the opener. Let's get to 2-0 at home and 2-1 on the season. Let's forget about that Tampa game. Let's get back in the win column, and let's go Birds! Beat the Colts on Sunday, and I look forward to seeing Mark M. and the other guys there at Nichols. And if anyone's at Nichols and they see this vid and they want to go to Nichols and say hi, feel free. Just don't be a stalker. That's all that's all I want to say about that. But feel free, if you ever see us out and about or whatever, say hi. We'll shake hands or fist bump or whatever and talk a little Birds, or, if we're out watching a game or something. We're all there for the same reason. We want to see them win and have success. All right, well, welcome back to Carson. When I wear this jersey, the day of the game, and of course look forward to seeing the guys there on Sunday, and hope we can see them get a win. Our first time watching a game at Nichols, so let's go to 1-0. All right, everyone. I'll see you all after the game with some post-game talk, and go Birds as always. Beat those Colts. I'll see you after the game.